Hey guys, it's Kaylor. Welcome to the YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be finishing our portfolio website. The last video, we designed it in Adobe XD, and today we're going to be coding it with HTML and CSS. Also, make sure you download the project files. They will be down in the description, and everything will be exported from Adobe XD for you, so you don't have to do that for yourself. We're going to start off here in the index.html, and let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start by setting the document type, so doc type, HTML. And then we'll open and close the HTML tag. Next up is the head tag. And inside of here, first we're going to start with the title. And I'm just going to call mine portfolio, but you might want to add your name here if you're going to be actually using this. So title portfolio. And then we're going to need two meta tags. So I'm just going to duplicate this. The first one is going to set the character set to UTF-8. And the next one is going to set the viewport. So name is viewport. And then outside of that, I'm going to have content, and this is going to be width equals device dash width, and then comma initial dash scale equal to 1.0. Then we're going to link to the style sheet, rel style sheet, type is text / CSS, and then href main.css. That's all we need for the head tag. I'm going to open and close the body. We're going to be using div tags with different classes for our sections. I'm going to start with a div with a class of nav. Inside of here, we're going to need two groupings. The first one is a div with a class of contact me. And the second one is going to be named nav icons. If we look at our design on the left, we have the contact me text with the chat icon, and then over here we have our social media icons. So that's what's going to be inside of these two groupings. So first with the contact me, we're going to need an A tag, so it's a link, href, and I'll just put a pound symbol, and then image with a source of images, chat_blue.png. I'll give this an alt of just chat logo. Outside of that image tag, but still inside the A tag, I'm going to type out contact me. And that's all we need inside the contact me. Inside the nav icons class, I'm going to have a link, so href, pound symbol that out, with an image, source, images, YouTube gray for the YouTube icon that's gray, and then alt, I'll do YouTube logo. I'm going to duplicate this twice, and then I'm going to change the path on this to BE_gray for Behance. Change the alt text to Behance. And the last one we will change to dribble_gray. Change the alt tag. And we can run this, and this is what we have so far. Moving on to the main.css, let's go ahead and start styling this a bit. So I've added a comment called global, and everything below this is just going to be globally applied, and then we'll make another section for the nav and so on. So I'm going to first start with a browser reset, so the asterisk will select everything. I'm going to set the margin to 0, padding 0, border 0, outline 0. Font size is going to be set to 100%. Vertically align, baseline, and background transparent. After that, I'm going to make a class called clearfix with the selector of after. Inside of here, I'm going to have content, two quotes, and then clear both floats, and then display of table. If you're curious about what the clearfix class is actually doing, when I first started coding, I had no idea why people were using it. I'm going to try my best to explain it to you. So a clearfix is a way for an element to automatically clear its children. So if you're using floats in a div, sometimes you're going to have a 0 height container problem because they're floating those elements. They're not going to have a height. This is a way to clear that and make sure everything renders below it. That's the best way I can put it. If you want to Google it and do some more research into it, just Google Clearfix and what it does. Below Clearfix, I'm going to target the HTML document itself, and I'm going to set the font family to the font we were using, which is Circular STD. And if that's not available, I'm going to use sans serif. Since I'm on a local host, this is going to work for me, but if you're going to publish this website on a server, you're going to need something like Typekit or a way to embed this. Next, I'm going to set the font weight to 100 by default. Then we can target the body, and this is where we're going to set the margins on the side of our design. So I'm going to set this to a width of 60% of the browser, and then I'm going to margin this to auto so that it aligns to the center. We're also going to be applying a background image. Now, we didn't use a background image in our design. I'll pull it up here. We just had it white, but then I did add the circle. So what I did was off camera, I just created a giant rectangle the size of this and just grabbed these circles and put them into a group and exported it as an image. So we just have these circles in the background kind of just randomly now. So we are going to be using that, and that will be in the project file. So images, just bg.png. And we're going to need to set this position to top. The background size is going to be to cover. And background repeat, because we don't want this to repeat. We're going to set that to no repeat. That's all for the body. Now let's start styling our fonts. So the first thing we're going to be using is an H1 for our large headings. Font size on these is going to be 40 pixels with a font weight of 400. And I'll set the color to the bluish black we're using, which is 17191A. I'm going to duplicate this, change this to H2. This is going to be for our skills heading. This is going to be 35 pixel font, and everything else can stay the same. I'll duplicate this one more time. I'm also going to make some space so you guys don't have to look at the bottom of the screen so much. And I'm going to put this to H5. So we're going to skip from H1, H2 to all the way to H5. This one is going to have 20 pixel sized font. The font weight I'm going to remove, and then the margin is going to be set to the top of 10 pixels. That's going to be for some spacing later on. The last text we have to do is the body text, which I'm going to be using a P tag for. And I'm going to set the color on this to a bluish gray. The code on that one is 8F9EA5. Since this is not the perfect gray that we were using in the design, it doesn't transition into code perfectly. I am going to do a little cheat, and I'm going to do 0.8 on the opacity. I wouldn't suggest doing this very often, but I'm going to do it for the sake of the video, just so it looks more like the design. I'm going to change the font weight to 100. I'm going to also adjust the spacing with a margin top of 10 pixels. The font size is going to be set to 20 pixels. And that is all we need for the P tag. So we just did a lot of CSS that's going to help us later on. If we look at what we're getting now, it doesn't really look any different. This is just being pushed over, and this is now our space for our margin. That goes on both sides. That's basically all you can see. So let's get started with the CSS for this navigation. I'm going to paste in that comment and just change this to nav. Make some more space. First up, I'm going to target the nav class. I'm going to set this to a display of flex since we have two divs inside of that. We're going to put one on the left and one on the right. I'm going to align the items to center. And I'm going to set a height on this to 100 pixels. Next, I'm going to target the contact me and the .nav icons classes. Here we'll set the flex to 1. That's all we need for that. Now I'm going to target the nav icons by itself. And text align this to the right. That's going to get these icons over here. Now we're going to target 3 things. The first is going to be nav icons A, then contact me A, and then contact me image. These are going to be set to display inline block and then vertically align them to the middle. Now we have everything lined up nicely. I'm going to start by adding some space in between the elements now. So .nav icons A. I'm going to set a margin to the left only of 40 pixels. Contact me A. I'm going to set the color of this text to the blue we're using in our design, which is 027 BFF. And I'll remove the text decoration to none to get that underline gone. And the last thing we have to target in the nav is the contact me image by itself. And we're going to set a margin on this to the right of 10 pixels. So if we take a look at what we have now, it's looking like our design. The next section we have is what I'm calling the landing section. On the left, we just have some text. On the right, we have an image. And then we have this little icon for scrolling down. So back to the index.html. Below our class of nav, I'm going to make some space, and then I'll open up a div and give this a class of landing. Inside of that, I'm going to do another div with a class of landing wrapper. Inside of the landing wrapper, we're going to start with a div with a class of landing L for landing left. I'm going to duplicate that and then make one called landing R for the right. Then before I forget, outside of the landing wrapper completely, just inside the landing section, we're going to need the image for the scroll. So we'll create an image tag with a source of images, scroll.png. For the alt, I'll just say scroll down, and I'll give this a class of scroll. We place this scroll outside of the landing wrapper so that we can use a display of flex on these 2 items. So inside of the landing LDiv class, first thing I'm going to do is put an h1 tag with Ethan Jones, period. Below that, I'm going to put a p tag, paste in our text. In our design, we break and go to a new line after UI UX, so I'm going to put a br tag in after that. We also need to use the proper code for this and symbol, and that is and symbol amp semicolon. That will make sure this doesn't interfere with any of our code. And then we're going to have to put a span tag around product designer. So I'll copy this and place it right before the period. And then I'm going to give this a class of blue. Since we just created that class of blue, I actually forgot to add that to the global styling. So I'm just going to go in here right above the H1 and put .blue. And all we're going to have to do here is just set the color to the blue color that we're using. The color code is 027 BFF. Back to our code. Below our P tag, I'm going to start an unordered list, and this is going to be for the list of what else we do. Inside of this, I'm going to have a list item with a P tag inside of that. For the first one, I'm going to say UI/UX. I'm going to duplicate this and change the next one to product designer. The next one will be web designer. And for the last one, I'll put in front end. Now on to the class of landing R. Inside of here, we're going to need an image with a source of images, face underscore image. Then I'm going to add an alt tag of Ethan Jones pic. I am going to set the width here to 300 pixels. So we take a look at what we have now. We have everything we need to make this section look good, so let's go ahead and style it. On the CSS, I'm going to paste in that comment again, and we'll change it to landing. And I'm just doing this to keep this nice and organized. So the first thing I'm going to do is target the landing class, and I'm going to set a height of 100 VH, which is the viewport height. So that is the size of the browser height. So if I take this and scale this down, this is 100% from here to here. So it adjusts with the browser. Now the reason we're doing this is so we can set up the scroll icon directly at the bottom of the browser. We're also going to set a position of relative for that icon later on as well. Next is the landing wrapper class. And here I'm going to set a display of flex, and justify content is going to be space between. And then we have a margin top of 40 pixels. So now we just added a margin up here. We placed this section on the left and this section on the right. Now I'm going to target the UL, and I'm going to take away the list style and set it to none. I'm going to set the margin top to 30 pixels and the line height to 30 pixels. For the landing L, so the landing left section, the margin top is going to be for EM. And finally, we're going to target the scroll class that we applied to that scroll image. And I'm going to set the position to absolute. That's why we use relative up here. The bottom is going to be set to 180 pixels. Now we're going to position this by setting left to 0, right to 0, and the margin to auto. To explain why I put this value at 180 pixels, I've set the landing section to a background of red really quick. I just want to show you this for a learning purpose. We've set the navigation to 100 pixels high, and then we have a margin in between that and this new section at 40 pixels. So the amount of space from this section to the top of the browser is 140 pixels. Since this section is set to 100 VH, it's going to take the height of this browser, and it's always going to be that same size, no matter where it's at on the page. And since there's a gap of 140 up top, if we scroll down, there's 140 extra pixels below the end of the browser. So I've set this value to 180 to give it 40 spacing from the bottom of the browser. So in case you were wondering where I got that number from, that's where I got it. All right, so let's move on to the next section. Now that we have our landing section done, we're going to move on to this skills section. I'm going to make some space at the bottom of my landing div and create one with a class of skills. This is going to be a very simple section. The only thing we're going to need is an h2 tag that says skills, a p tag, paste in my text. We do have a line break after using, so I'm going to put a br tag there so it matches our design. And lastly, I'm going to create a div with a class of programs, and this is going to have all of those images inside of it. So image, source, images, the first one is XD, and I'm going to give this an alt tag of XD icon, duplicate that 4 times, and then I'll just change the values. PS AI AE, and then I will change the alt tags accordingly. And that's all we need for the HTML. For the CSS, I'm going to copy our comment, paste that in, and just change it to skills. Below this, we only need 3 things. First, I'm going to target the skills class. I'm going to set the text alignment to center, the margin on the bottom to 20 EM. Next, we need to target the skills p tag. I'm going to set a margin on the bottom to 30 pixels. And the last tag is .skills image for our icons that we're using for the programs. I'm going to set the width on these to 40 pixels, and then we'll set a spacing in between them. So I'll set a margin of 0, and then for the second value, I'll do 15 pixels. which is on the left and the right. So we should have 30 spacing in between all of our icons, which we do as you see here. The next section is going to be this entire thing right here. It's going to show a project that we've designed, have a title, have a link to view the project, and then also have 3 places to go view it on other platforms. Then we're going to duplicate this, flip it around, and then we just finish up with the footer. Below the skills class, I'm going to make some room. I'm going to create a div with a class of work, space, clearfix. So this is where our clearfix is going to come into play. Inside of that, I'm going to give this a div with a class of work text. Inside of that, I'm going to have an H1 tag, and the first one's going to be Apple Store. This is our first project name. And then we're going to use the A tag for a link, pound symbol that out. And then we have our first H5 tag, and we're going to use this for view project. Then we need to have our blue underline, and to do that, I'm going to do a div with a class of underline. Outside of our work text div, I'm going to create a UL. The list item is going to have an A tag inside of it, href, pound symbol that out. Then inside of there, we're going to have an image with a source of images, dribble black.png. And then I'll give this one an alt of dribble icon. I'm going to duplicate that 2 more times. The next one is BE_black, so Behance. I'll change my alt tag. And the last one is YouTube_black. And then change the alt tag for that one as well. Outside of the UL, before the final closing div tag of the work section, I'm going to add an image with a source of images, project_01, and an alt tag of project image. And I'm going to give this a class of work img. Now, I did mention this in the first video, but I will not be including this image in the project files. So just make sure you put one of your own pieces of work here. So that's all we need there. So let's go ahead and style this. I'm going to copy the comment and paste that in. And right here, I'm just going to put in work, and then I'll do 01 since we're going to have multiple sections of this. Now for the styling, I'm going to say .work. And the width is going to be 100%. Position is set to relative. And the margin bottom is going to be 20 EM. That's going to be matching the skill section. And we're going to be using the spacing for the remainder of the website. Next, I'm going to target the work. And then I'm going to use the greater than sign to target the .work text. And I'm using this selector so that we can change this later on and flip it the opposite way for the next work section that's going to follow with our second project. So I'm targeting this that way so that later on we can have something like this, and we don't have to change this class name at all. We could just target each one individually. For more on selectors and how they actually work, you can go to W3 Schools, just search CSS selectors, and it will be the first link. So inside of here, I'm going to say position, absolute, and then the top is going to be 85. So right now, this is looking like a jumbled mess. It's going to start to take form as we do the CSS, but I am using absolute on these 3 things right here. Now I'm going to target the .work. Then I'm going to use the greater than symbol again, say work text. Then I'm going to use the greater than symbol and then target the underline. So that way we are only targeting this underline in this div tag. And this I'm going to set a display of block, a background color of blue, so 027, BFF, a height of 3 pixels, a width of 61 pixels, and then a margin top of 5 pixels for some spacing. Next, I'm going to say .work with the greater than symbol, and then target the work image. Here I'm going to set the width to 85%, and then I'm going to float it to the right. For the next section, I used a box shadow generator. You can Google box shadow generator CSS, and it will give you the option to fill out all the information, or you can just kind of pause the video and copy down the code I'm about to paste in. Next is the .work UL. So I'm going to set the position on this to absolute. The bottom is set to 0, and the right is set to 86%. Lastly, we can target the .work UL list items. And I'm going to put a margin to the top of 20 pixels. And that's what we have so far. You'll notice that we do have an underline on this view project. We will be removing that shortly. So now we're just going to copy this entire section and paste it down here. To make this as clear as possible without any confusion, I'm just going to copy and paste this HTML section we just made called work. I'm going to paste it down here, and I'm just going to add a 2 on the end of that. So now we have this new div called work2. So we're going to need to change a few things. The H1 is now going to be social app, or whatever your project's name is. And then I need to change the project image out. I'm going to leave the alt tag on this just the same. So as far as the HTML goes, that's all good. Now for the CSS, I've created a new comment named work02. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to recode this with you really quickly, just because there's going to be a lot of switching things around, and I don't want you guys to miss one and your whole website break. So it's going to make the video just a little bit longer, but I think it's probably the best decision. First, we're going to say work2 now, and I'm going to set the width on that to 100%. The position is relative, and then the margin bottom is 20 EM. Following that, we have the .work2 with the greater than symbol, and this is targeting the new work text. And we're going to set the position on this to absolute. The top is going to be 85 pixels, and then the right is going to be set to 0. So now the text is aligned on the other side, and then we're going to text align this to the right as well to get everything to line up. After that, I'm going to target the work2 greater than symbol, .work text, another greater than symbol, and then the underline now. This underline is going to be the same. It's going to be display of block. That way we can apply a width and a height. I'm going to first set the background color. This is our blue, so 027 BFF. The height on this was 3 pixels. The width was 61 pixels. The margin top was set to 5 pixels. And now I'm going to add a float to the right. So if we look what we have so far, a lot of things are broken, but we can see everything is aligning text-wise over here on the right with the underline now underneath this side. Now we need work2 with a greater than symbol, and then we need to target the work image again. With a width of 85%. I'm going to float it to the left now. And I'm going to paste in my drop shadow again. After that, I'm going to set the work2 UL. So the unordered list is going to have a position of absolute, a bottom of 0, and a left of 86%. So that is now flipped. And then we're going to target the work2 ULLI, so the list items. And I'm going to set the margin to the top to 20 pixels. So with all of that done, now we have an exact copy of what we had before, but now flipped on the other side. One thing I did just notice is this text is not supposed to be this high. So I think we have a typo or something has been left out. So let me go and check that. So under work 01, the work text, yeah, right here, the top is supposed to be set to 85 pixels. So that is why we are getting that error. So if I open this back up, you'll see it's pushed down now. So that looks good. So now what we need to do is remove these blue underlines underneath the view project. So we're going to do that all at once. For this, I'm just going to create another comment and just name this work 01 and 02. We're only going to be putting one thing here, but we might as well stay organized. We have this far. And I'm just going to say dot work A and then comma dot work 2A, and then we'll just remove the text decoration, set that to none, and then we can also set the color of the text to the black color, so 17191A. So now we have the proper black color, and we don't have that underline, and we do have the underline that we're supposed to have on both of these. To finish this up, we just have this section where we link to our dribble. So let's go ahead and finish it up. In the index right below our work 2, I'm just going to make some space. Oh, I do need to mention right now, if you want to add more work sections, you can just copy this entire thing and just copy and paste it again, and then just change all the information, and all the code will work perfect. Okay, so div class of footer. We need two things. The first is an A tag, href, # that out. Then I'll add an h3 tag. And on this, I'm going to give this a class of blue. And I'm just going to say more on dribble. Below this, we need another div with a class of underline. And I'm actually going to make a new underline called small. Because this underline up here was too big for this section, we're just going to make this one a little bit smaller. And that's all we need for the HTML, so now that is completely finished. In the main.css, I'm just going to copy our comment, and we'll apply the final one and call it footer. First thing we need to do is in the footer, we have a background image, so I'm going to go ahead and set that. So background-image, URL, images, dribble, and this is the _blue_large dribble icon. Background repeat at no repeat. Background position is going to be set to the right and the top. And then the background size, I'm going to set to 320 pixels for the height and width. Let's add some padding to the bottom of the section, so 7 EM. And then we'll text align to the center. For our footer length, so .footer A, I'm going to set the color to blue, so 027 BFF, and we'll remove the text decoration by setting it to none. And the last thing we need is the new underline small. Just like the last underline, I'm going to set the display of block so we can set a height and a width. The height on this one is going to be 3 pixels, and the new width is going to be 41 pixels. I'm going to set a margin on this to 5 pixels on the top, auto on the right, 0 on the bottom, and auto on the left. Then we just need to add a background color of blue, so 027 BFF. And with all of that, we are done with our code. So that is our portfolio website project done, designed, and coded. So if you guys like this series and want to see more of it, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more UI related content, and as always, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.